you how to send your survey using external distributions. So first thing first, have your survey good to go. So, I've got this survey here that I'm using. It's got many different data types in it. So once you've got your survey set up, you're pretty much good to go from there on, and I'll show you what to do next. So what you want to do is you want to click publish, and this is it, external, okay? Which means you can either have it anonymous or have it as an identified user. First, I'm going to show anonymous, which means, yeah, it's completely anonymous. You don't know where it's come from. You're just interested in the responses. So we'll call this one anonymous survey, and I'll create it. And now it's created. It's going to give you the link. You could pop this in your Salesforce email template, and you can send this out as a mass email. And to the end user who's going to click on the link, this is what it's going to look like. So if I click on it, here's my survey. I'm going to go ahead and click start. We're going to go ahead and fill out a survey, and all this data is going to go into Salesforce for you. So I'll just demonstrate this right now and submit, and voila, just like that, your survey is going to end up in here. And this is it, distribution link survey, and everything is going to be here in terms of the responses. Obviously, it's going to be anonymous, all right? So you'll be able to see all the details like survey taken. It was completely anonymous so that you wouldn't know who's taken it. It doesn't really matter in this case. You'll be able to see your server distribution list here, and you'll also be able to see all the responses that has been provided by that anonymous source. But one of the things that you need to be mindful of, there's another side to this. So let's say if I click publish, and this time I'll do new and external. But this time I'm going to choose identified user. All right, and then what you can do is you can choose your object, and you can create a parameter. So I've created this parameter called contact ID. In fact, I'm going to show it to you right now. So under custom variables, under static, I've created something called contact ID as my variable. And now if I go back in here, let's say I do new and do external. Let's say I choose identified user to be contact, and then contact ID, and then it's done. So contact survey. Now it's identified user because we've created a parameter that we can pass in there. So let's say this is created. I'll copy the URL, I'll pop it in here. Something I want you to look for is this. You see in the URL how it's appended the contact ID in there for you. So now what I can do is I can go into Salesforce, and obviously you can take this URL. What you want to do is you want to keep everything after the equals, and then this could be your merge field in your Salesforce, which could be contact ID, account ID, depends on what object you use. In my case here, you can now see that contact ID parameter, and I've passed in a random contact ID in there, which is called Joe Blogs in there. Now, what can you do as the identified user? You can run an action, for example. Let's say I run an action, okay? And let me just refresh my metadata. So an action I could run, for example, when Joe Blogs completes the survey, I could just quickly have this checked so I know he has completed it. So what can you do? You can go in here, you can create a new push, choose contact, and then we can do an update, and my condition is very simple. Contact ID equals my contact ID. And all I really want to do is my survey completed. I can set this to Boolean true. That's all that needs to be done. And then just like that, I can go over to tools, go over to survey, and then on submit action, I can run a Salesforce action like that. Very, very simple. So right now I have a toast message, but I'm going to turn that off, and just like that, it's done. Click apply. Now let's do a test here, shall we? So let's do a brand new. We'll do new again. We'll do external. We'll identify the user. It's going to be contact. And again, I'm going to choose contact ID. And I'm going to call this one test. Alright, so now I've got it. Copy the URL, pop it in here, copy this ID, and again, you can copy this entire URL in your email templates within Salesforce, and all you have to do is just modify the last relevant contact ID here, which you can put your merge field in there, so we'll pick up the relevant contact ID of whichever one you send it to. So now I can go in here, go mechanical, put a bunch of stuff in there, it's all good. Next, next, submit. And now it's going to run that action in Salesforce for me, which hopefully will check the survey completed because it's identified that as a user. So if I go back into Joe Blogs now, click on details, you can see that the survey completed is checked. It's beautiful. It works really, really nicely. So now the survey completed is checked. You can also see that my survey has worked as well. So as you can see, here's the survey and everything else related is in there, and all the responses have come into that specific survey with total responses coming in, because first we did anonymous and second we did as identified user, like that. So that's it. It's really that straightforward. You've got everything else coming in nicely, but the two differences that you've just seen are that the anonymous will work anonymously, but if there's an identified user, you can run various different actions to populate and identify the user and even update their Salesforce record.